Ez here. Guys, did you know that I lived in Hawaii once upon a time? And I also lived in Japan. One of the cool fruits that I had the opportunity to ingest was called a persimmon. You know what tastes better than persimmons? Permission. What are you giving yourself and what are you keeping from yourself in regards to permission? Lang, what's up? Ez here. Now I was kind of dropping a little joke talking about the persimmon fruit. More people would give themselves permission to eat a permission than give themselves permission to be themselves. This has been probably the single most important thing that I have navigated and given to myself, really, as I look back over the course of my life, but more intentionally going into that specifically and then identifying what that entails. What does it entail to give yourself permission? Well, you can give yourself permission to do a bunch of dumb shit and then suffer, which I've done. You can also give yourself permission to look into who you are and allow yourself to present that to the world. Now, the reason that permission is so important is that there are a number of things that I believe and I see and I notice. So it's not just about my beliefs, but it's observation, even within my own life, that I've chosen at times to hide, right? Because what's going to happen to me if people see all that I am? What's going to happen if folks know I have maybe a certain type of intelligence or a certain skill sets? And what we've seen also is that people have been punished, right? A smart guy in school maybe gets punished, or maybe ends up fighting. Maybe he's smart and he's whipping people's asses. Go figure. The journey of us being truly ourselves is something that is your own initiation. You have to give yourself permission. And all the time, no matter what anyone else says, when it boils down to it, it's really you at the end of the day that has given yourself permission to not be yourself by a declaration, by a belief system, by reaction to a fear, by some delusion or illusion of something that hasn't occurred yet, or a reaction to something that did occur projected upon what is to be. And then you create that. Giving myself permission to look into my artistry. Giving myself permission to get into what is important to me in terms of study. My books. I like physics, what to say, but not just any physics. I like looking into magnetism. What's ever been important to me ever since I was a kid. One could call it intimacy. You can then go further into saying, what is the conjugate fitting nature of our reality? And then to know the nature of the reality that we're in, and then to identify, what is my place in that reality? How do I fit into the conjugate nature of the reality? How do I fit into the party? How am I on the roster? And then what am I to do has been a great gift to me. And it all started with giving myself permission. That permission can also be, for some of you, giving yourself permission to be in the type of relationship that you want. Plural. Plural meaning your relationship to yourself. I give myself permission to have a great, loving, beautiful, and responsible relationship with myself and this body that's taken me through so much. Of course, it's taken cancers, organ failures, loss of being able to, losing my mobility and then having to kind of bring that back, breaking my mind, having to have the mind through a lot of hard work put back together and identifying what that means to me. Also, relationships. How will you choose? What would you like to give yourself permission to experience in relationship with the beloved, another person, woman, man? This is for everyone, right? How about work relationships? Identifying, and this is some of the things that we talk about as well, right? Identifying what type of work dynamic is most conducive for you, aligned with your values and your principles, to generate a beneficial outcome for how you choose to navigate as a leader, what you're seeking to birth into this world. Because those things are factors. There's people who really don't have a clue and can, inconsequentially sabotage based on their genuine nature, which isn't bad, which isn't good, but it may be contrary to what you're seeking to accomplish. So it's important to look into those things. And when you identify what type of relationships that you'd like to have, why you want those types of relationships, how you intend to then add, right? What do you want to deposit into that relationship? I think that's one of the more important things. And can it be done? Do you want to be in a relationship at all? For me now, here are some permissions I've given myself. I give myself permission to surf, to get into the water, to connect at my capacity, to push myself as far as I want to go. I give myself permission to create whatever the I choose in regards to offerings that are aligned with my incarnation. Whether I have taken any courses in certain things, I've lived enough life now to know that a lot of the things that have been created, even coursework, well, the people that created them had to create it, right? They had to have some experiences that they wanted to translate to help move a person from here to here. And so I give myself permission now to activate, to do the work, to fall in line, to support the people that mean something to me, and also to create boundaries. I give myself permission to be decisive. I give myself permission to make new choices, to look at yesterday as I reflect and say, you know what? Bro, you woke up a little bit later than you wanted to wake up, and you just kind of laid there in bed. What if tomorrow you wake up and you just put feet on the ground as soon as your eyes open, and then figure it out from there? The result is I'm able to wake up earlier. Love this. And also now for you ladies in relationship. And here's another one. I give myself permission to be in the most genuine relationships, first and foremost with myself, which means I say, Ez, you're lying to yourself somewhere. Figure it out. Where are you not being honest with yourself? And then, oddly enough, for each of those things, and I will do this for my entire life, I begin to see where other people aren't honest with themselves. I give myself permission to be compassionate as I discover and disillusion myself to the lies based on belief systems, based on my fears and traumas that I perpetuate and how they've affected people. I give myself permission to apologize to people. I give myself permission to forgive myself and to pardon people of their debts, so-called debts to me. I give myself, you dig? You see where I'm going, right? So this isn't so much to create a mantra, but to really spark some awareness as to your real power. What empowers you? You. Other versions of you. I am but another version of you who's conscious of what he is, what it is within this he body. And of course, for me now, the other thing that I'm going to speak to, my kuleana, and this is a word that I learned from a woman named Auntie Ku. This was in Hawaii at Kahumana Farms on Oahu, Waianae side, the west side, right? I was there visiting, preparing to do a retreat on this beautiful farmland, wonderful, producing farmland in the valley of Makaha. Actually further, not right up in Makaha Valley. And I just happened to be there while some of the elders were there. Some of them were planning for Kamehameha schools, utilizing another version of Ho'oponopono. The other group, a lot of the other kahunas and the other elders were off, I believe it's Mauna Kea, right? When all the stuff was going on Big Island. And so I just happened to be there at that time. I just happened to be staying on the property and walked past, and they said hello. We greeted with the ha, sharing breath together, because I knew about that, and they invited me into their space as a witness. They said, if you're here, you're meant to be here, and be here in the right way. Of course, I've been raised with a modicum of I know how to behave myself. Behave meaning I can sit and be very quiet and observe and be really respectful. I already know how to do these things. It's just part of my makeup. So I joined, and one of the words that came out in the dialogue as I was doing, I said something about the situation in America, blah, blah, blah. And Auntie said, hey, son, listen, brother, that's not our kuleana right now. And I felt like, what do you mean it's not your kuleana? We're all one human. And then I looked into the word. And then, of course, I got to come back the next day, and I was like, wow, thank you for sharing that with me. Because kuleana means a responsibility, but not just a responsibility. This is an honor to have that responsibility. So to know, you can look at it kind of like dharma, but I find kuleana more cool. This is something that is been given to you based on your uniqueness, right, as a gift that you get to steward. And that stewarding of that gift, that focus will help guide you in life and allow you to give where you're meant to give of what you are able to give, which is in line, which means you give powerfully. So to take hold of your kuleana, not to be confused with kuli, we've heard this word before, different language, right? But kuleana, okay, your pono responsibility, the great responsibility, and that meant something to me. And so for me in life, because I've been listening, because wisdom is important, not epistemological knowledge, which is also important because you need that to attain to certain wisdom, meaning the knowledge that you can learn in a book, but that if something hits my head, If I have a brain injury, epistemological knowledge, that knowledge will disappear because a region of my physical body has been injured, right? As opposed to gnosis, which is where we maybe utilize that epistemological knowledge, that knowledge that disappears to help get to the point of understanding and bringing in the remembering. Okay, the gnosis isn't taking on something new, it's being able to activate a remembering of why we're here. So that's my journey, is to dive into that level of gnosis and then to operate from there. So it's very clear to me, as you do the work to gain that, and when you do, and you know it when you do, that can't be lost. This is like your soul taking hold of what it was here for its next expression. And I'm aware that the soul, the signal, the body doesn't own the soul exists and sheds the body, right? So whatever lessons that the soul was, put here to attain to remember itself in its process will of course help it as it moves forward. I give myself permission to operate at that level for the rest of the duration of my life. And so if a relationship isn't aligned for that purpose, I give myself permission to recontextualize the relationship. So the reason I brought up Kuleana is, as you grow in gnosis, as you come into deeper remembrance, as you evolve as a human being, well then it's important to look at, take inventory again of the evolution that has just occurred. And of course that may take some time. But as you look at that, you also can decide, well, what applies to that now? If I'm this new being, what things have I been doing before that really probably aren't aligned with the newness that I am? And what things will I decide? What things will I give myself permission to do and to not do to continue to grow for who I've become? That takes pausing. You can kind of do it. We're always moving. We're always in motion. We never actually really stop. But it takes at least setting some time aside intentionally to reflect on what has shifted. Please reflect on what has shifted. What is this new you? Our Scorpios. Death and rebirth. Pause. Take a look at it. What has shifted in you? What did you have to let die away? Honor it, okay? What is this new you that has been rebirthed? Honor it. And then know that that new you has new possibilities, new abilities, new opportunities to do something. So how do you align the permissions that you give yourself to go after and to experience all of those? Permission. We block ourselves from a lot of beautiful experiences. And we give ourselves permission to not give ourselves permission. But I'm telling you, every initiation that an individual really has in their life, and I'm someone who does initiations for people, and I've initiated and I continue to initiate myself. I said it. I initiate myself into different levels of my being that can't come from anywhere else, because you're making a decision. You're giving yourself permission. If you were going to a tantric experience or whatever, we use the term, I'm going to throw that out, an experience of the beingness, okay? You trust people, you go to a retreat, and you know that you're going to come into a new version of you. You've taken on a coach, support, a guide man, right? One of my brothers was on today, been going in. His life is shifting because he's given himself permission to work with me. He's given himself permission to trust my guidance, to act upon that, to defer. It's a beautiful thing. Women, you want to be in a relationship with a man with some wisdom. Why? You want to be able to defer to him. Doesn't mean that you're not using your own brain, but you know that you can trust and relax. When you just want to relax, right? And know things are going to be taken care of. And know that if you have a question, you can at least present it to him, and then you guys can come up with something. He may be wrong, but you can figure it out together. But for the most part, there it is. You have that support. There's that thing that's been cultivated. You allow yourself to be initiated into what it is to trust a person, to fall into different levels of your feminine, to experience beauty, the initiation of every time that you have coitus, every time that you sleep with a person, whether it's been craziness in the past or not, almost every time, right? There are some situations that, of course, are unfortunate. I'm not talking to those. I'm talking to, I made a decision, I'm here, I'm hooking up, I'm connecting, I'm going to go forward in relationship, I'm going to go on this date. All these are initiations to different levels of yourself. They can be very subtle. And the very subtle is the building block of the large. Okay? The unseen is the birthplace of the seen. So the unseen is where all the potential and power is. The expression of the power is the seen. I'm not going to go any further than that in terms of the metaphysics. I want to save that for the Obsidian Soul Lounge and also for my personal gatherings. But just know, you give yourself permission. So do it. Where have you not been giving yourself permission to be all of you? Where have you not given yourself permission to explore what you are in order to be able to express more of you? Where is that lacking? And also, where have you been giving permissions where you probably should be saying no? The balance, right? Maybe I used to give people permission to encroach upon my space. I like to be alone. But when I go out, I'm there. I'm with you. I'm present. So there's the balance. I used to give people permission to move things around, to really capitalize on their, it's not even a privilege, right? They capitalize on the expectation that I should be a certain way, that I should give certain things, that I should do certain ways that's not expressed. There's a word for that too. And it's escaping me right now, okay? But it's like, you should. But really, I don't give people permission to should me anymore. I allow everyone to speak, to express themselves. But there's some way that Ez swings the hammer at this point, because I've come to know myself. I've known more of my power. And of course, I'll do it with compassion, if it begets compassion. And also, I'm just willing to say, hey, look, we're going to have a talk. I want to express something. My request is that you don't fly away, that you sit and receive what I have to share, and I'll do the same for you. You're probably not going to like what I have to say, but it's coming from a place of my authenticity, truth that I found, and my intention for a better unfoldment for all of us. That's a big deal. So that really can empower a person in speaking what they need to speak. I had to give myself permission, and then I had to practice not only the giving of permission, but the follow through to see what it looks like. This is Ez's live for today, sharing on permission, starting with persimmons, because those fruits are great. The persimmon, it's kind of like a tomato. You can find them in Japan, for sure in the South Pacific, but I believe they have an origin in Japan. Let them get super ripe. So juicy, so delicious. It's a passion fruit with a little crunch. Then permission. You are empowering yourself with your own, the real reality, that you exist, and giving yourself permission to look at what you are, which takes time, to identify how you want to steward the gift of you around everyone. I think is probably, again, for me, having done that, it's been the most huge, beautiful catalyst of initiation. And that catalyst has allowed me to really, really make deeper impact than I probably will ever express to you, not only in my life, but in the lives of those around me. That's something that can be felt by transmission. I can go to a place, I don't even have to speak, I can hide my face, but the energy, right, of what comes through by making that kind of choice and actually having the embodied experience of it. I'm using words right now because it's fun, but also words need not be expressed. You can feel it. You can feel it in a person, yeah? If you have eyes to see, ears to hear, nose to smell, tactile senses to feel that energy within yourself. Give yourself permission today, because nobody else can give you permission. And I'm only speaking to what's coming through with yourself. And don't confuse the two. There's permission. I give permission to me to do a thing that is within my power. Then there's consent. Now, someone else, when we're speaking to something that truly affects another person, and it's, within that relationship dynamic, then consent is another thing that should be looked at. So I personally am a person about semantics. They do matter. The minutia is the building block. So think about that in regards to your logic. Think about that in regards to the things that people present to you that aren't in coherence, especially because you're still presenting to yourself. Even through them, you're presenting to yourself. What's not in coherence? Coherent make you strong, like focused, concentrated, okay? Permission, you give you permission. consent, you need consent from another person. So I think maybe the next live, or what we'll talk about, maybe in the embodiment men's group as well, is consent, the difference between the two and where they're applicable. Because the next thing we start to speak to are boundaries. So let me do it. Let me give you permission to give yourself permission today if you needed it from an outside, inside source. I give you permission to explore who you truly are. I give you permission, this is you, right? I give you permission to be all of you. I give you permission to do it in a compassionate, kind, loving, understanding way. I give you permission to make the mistakes that you would consider to be mistakes and then rectify them with the wisdom that you'll accumulate. I give you permission to remember. Remember. All right. I give you permission to check out and have an awesome day. Yeah, that's the shaka. Aloha.